We've seen many interesting responses to the story recently, where Blizzard stripped the winner of a Hearthstone tournament of his title and prize money for speaking out in support of the Hong Kong protests. And here to discuss it with me today is Mr. Henry Cooper.
Hello.
So first up, the ex-Blizzard lead dev talks corruption, bribery, and why he supports hashtag boycott Blizzard. Now, it's pretty juicy. Mark Kern is a former development lead at Blizzard, and he worked there from 97 to 2005, 2006. The reports are conflicting. He worked on World of Warcraft, the original vanilla version. He also worked on StarCraft as a producer and Diablo 2. He left Blizzard and co-founded a studio called Red 5 Studios, who made the MMO Firefall, if any of you recall that. And also he's left there and he's now working on a game called Ember. So he's a well-known industry figure, and he's outspoken on Twitter. He's often quoted for saying things a bit controversial, let's say, on Twitter. So he released a series of interesting tweets a couple of days ago in relation to what happened with Blizzard, and he said he supported the hashtag boycott Blizzard trend, and he said the following: "This hurts, but until Blizzard reverses their decision on Blitzchung, I am giving up playing classic WoW, which I helped make and helped convince Blizzard to relaunch. There will be no Mark Kern guild after all. Let me explain why I'm hashtag boycott Blizzard. I am ethnically Chinese. I was born in Taiwan. I lived in Hong Kong for a long time. I have done business with China for many years with several gaming companies there. So I think I have a valid perspective here, having been a team lead at Blizzard and having grown up in Asia. It's one thing to keep politics out of games, which I'm still a proponent of doing. It's another to unfairly and harshly punish voices that speak out against corruption, against abuses of human rights and freedom." Next, he talks about the corruption in the Chinese gaming industry, and he says, "I have seen firsthand the corruption of Chinese gaming companies, and I was removed from a company I founded after Blizzard for refusing to take a $2 million kickback bribe to take an investment from China. This is the first time I have ever spoken publicly about it." And
bribe. That's a big word. Corruption and bribery straight away in that.
Technically, I didn't bribe anybody.
No, that's not the conversation.
No.
And here he's talking about Red 5 Studios, which is a studio which he co-founded after leaving Blizzard, and he left when he was voted out as CEO by Red 5's board of directors because, as we now know, he didn't take the Chinese bribe money, which is ground shaking, right?
Yeah, good for him for having integrity.
But he says, notably, not everybody refused the money. He says, "I've also seen how American company reps in China have been offered similar bribes to get licenses for large AAA titles. Not everyone refused like I did." So earlier in the tweets, he talked about how a lot of the money is coming from the government in China and how they subsidize the gaming companies. And he says that these companies get free land, free offices, and huge infusions of cash. And that cash is used to expand and to buy up stakes in US gaming companies. So as an example, Tencent, which is one of the largest video game company in the world according to Bloomberg last year. Tencent themselves own 100% of Riot Games, the majority owner of Miniclip Games, own 83% of Supercell, own 40% of Epic Games, 5% of Activision Blizzard, 5% of Ubisoft, and 5% of Paradox, among others. It's just a little flavor of how Chinese money is investing in Western games companies.
They got a finger in a couple of pies and a whole fist in a couple others.
So next, Kern talks about how disappointed he is that Blizzard have lowered themselves to this. He says, "Now the game companies are silencing voices for freedom and democracy. China is dictating that the world be authoritarian. Of all the companies in the world, Blizzard is the last company I ever expected to give in to China's demands. Blizzard was always about gamer first and don't be greedy. At least it was when I was there." Obviously, it is over 10 years ago since he was there, but it's quite a scathing review, that.
Yeah, a lot of people say Blizzard isn't who they were, much like in the same way people talk about companies like Bethesda. Given the whole Diablo Immortal thing, when that came up, that was a big fan outcry for that not being the way Blizzard usually behave with their fans and knowing what their fans want and being on the same wavelength. It's been a much more corporate thing, so they're not the same Blizzard as fans used to know and love.
So next up, he talks about the fears and the repercussions of him speaking up like he is doing. He says, "I take a huge risk by saying this. China monitors all social media, and I know this means that we will probably never get an investment from China from a new MMO and probably never get a license to operate there. But enough is enough. I stand with Hong Kong and I oppose Blizzard's obvious and laughably transparent fear of China." And towards the end, he says, "It's time for Blizzard to grow the spine it used to have and to do what's right for the gamers once again. Gamers rise up." Well said, Mr. Kearney.
Yeah, Gamers Rise Up is a total meme these days because it's a lot of calling for action when it's like, oh, come on, it's just a video game. But this, I think, is actually important because it is a proper political statement. It's not forced politics, it's actual politics.
Yeah, it's great that people like like Mark Kern, and not only have this opinion, but have the balls to stick not only his reputation, but his future career prospects on the line, literally dangling his balls out there, ready to be chopped off at any point. I applaud this kind of bravery to do what he's done here. And also, if anyone else is interested, for additional reading on the growing influence of China over our games industry, there's a decent article published in gamesindustry.biz by Rob Fahey recently. It's titled "Publishers Risk Being Trapped Between the US and China." It's quite a good read. He discusses how vulnerable our games industry is to China right now, so I highly recommend that if anyone else is interested. And talking specifically of Epic exclusivity, Mark Kearney says, "And yes, this means I will be refusing any deal for Epic exclusivity. The money comes from Tencent. Ember will never be an Epic Games Store exclusive," which is interesting, right? Because Epic Games have had some sort of reaction to this news too.
Yeah, they've had their own stance on it. But before we jump into that, Mark Cerny's playing a good move here because it'll get a lot of gamers on his side, as well as like the political side. Even if they don't necessarily agree, they'll be like, "Oh, well, he's anti-Epic, so that's good for us." But Epic have also said that they wouldn't stop people saying what they think. So Epic Games CEO Tim
They wouldn't
Sweeney,
do a Blizzard.
Yeah, they wouldn't do exactly what Blizzard have just done. Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic, said on Twitter, "Epic supports the rights of Fortnite players and creators to speak out about politics." And this came in response to Jason Schreier tweeting about the whole situation. Then someone commented asking how Epic would respond to this sort of thing because they are 40% owned by Tencent. And the 40% is key because that's a big number, but it's not majority, and that's kind of something that we'll go on to in just a second. Just to remind you, Tencent are that huge company who own so much of the gaming industry in China and are trying to bleed their way into the US. So Tim was then further questioned about Chinese involvement in the company with this whole large sharehold, and Tim said, "Epic is a US company and I'm the controlling shareholder. Tencent is an approximately 40% shareholder, and there are many other shareholders including employees and investors." Someone mentioned how the 40% stake is a big share and asked if he would risk losing that influential backing, and he said, "Yes, absolutely. That will never happen on my watch as the founder, CEO and controlling shareholder." So it's very much like, yes, we've got this Chinese backing, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna stop people saying what they think. And people use specific examples of esports figures like Tfue, and if he said something politically minded which maybe would put Epic in bad favor with China, he said that he would support that, and that's exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah,
he'd be in favor of that.
Again, I think this is another guy, an industry figure, coming out and in support of the Hong Kong protest, or his right to even say something about the Hong Kong protest, but having the bravery to do that and put in perhaps his future livelihood at stake. I mean, he's got balls, got handed to him.
Now you could feel that this is him being a bit disingenuous, just coming in and being like, "Oh well, me at my company, we would never do that. We're holier than thou." But the fact that he has said something backs that up even more, that he does mean it, because even saying something is a risk to his relationships with China and their the amount of shares they hold. And if they pull out, they have a lot less money. And like that's what people always throw around when Epic buy up exclusivity, is that it's all backed by China. It's all this money from China and Tencent and everything, which is quite accurate. If they lose Tencent as a shareholder, they're going to lose a healthy bit of money, but he's willing to take that risk by, well, so he says, by supporting people who do believe certain things.
I think he's taking the risk just by saying it.
I am dangerous.
But altogether, Blizzard have not exactly calmed down with the blocking of criticism as they were doing with when this whole thing started, with blocking people who criticize China. So apparently people have been getting 1,000-year bans from different Blizzard services. So someone got banned for trolling, apparently, which was showing solidarity to Blitzchung, and he's been banned until October the 8th, 3019. So it's 1,000 years. And again, that's not someone necessarily manually typing in that number. It's probably just, all right, well, let's just knock the zeros up and make it seem really harsh, and then we'll wean it down once all this has blown over. But still, a 1,000-year ban, that's hilarious.
Yeah, you get less time for being a multiple murderer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe in 1,000 years, the whole China and Hong Kong situation will actually be resolved.
Yeah, we'll be talking Chinese. We'll be owned by the Chinese.
Yeah, we will.
They've bought up everyone.
People have been trying to delete their accounts in the various things like Hearthstone or WoW Classic and all that, which we talked about.
It was one of the reactions on Reddit was that everyone en masse was trying to delete their accounts in retaliation.
There were kind of tutorials on how to do it, like going through your settings and stuff. But apparently some people have been completely unable to. So there's this guy on Twitter called @Spare. Hey, @BlizzardCS. I've tried to delete my account 5 times times now, denied every time, why aren't you letting me delete my account? So it sounds like Blizzard are intentionally blocking people from leaving, which is actually a GDPR violation. Like, if people request their account to be suspended, you have to do so within a certain period of time, like it's legally binding. So the Blizzard customer support for the US, who is the person they atted, said, there is an issue affecting the site which our engineers are currently investigating. I don't have an ETA for the resolution, but it's a priority for us to have this resolved, and I expected it to be before too much longer. Apologies, and thank you for your patience.
Yeah, we have a problem with too many people cancelling their accounts right now. We've got this issue where we're just going to wait for everyone to calm down a little bit, and hopefully they won't delete their accounts in a couple of days.
Now, it could be that the system is just overwhelmed and it can't process it, but it could also be that they are they're deliberately pausing the process so that when people have calmed down, like, okay, maybe I won't delete it. I was only going to delete it for a little bit, and then I'll reinstall it when I can get Hearthstone back without feeling guilty. One of the most interesting ones for me isn't immediately relevant because it didn't happen like overnight, but it actually happened back in June, and this was World of Warcraft in-client profanity filter has blocked a bunch of words, including no extradition to China, extradition law, no China extradition, anti-ELAB, and free Hong Kong. Now, these were blocked back in June, specifically on June 25th in a patch, and that was right when all the protests were really starting to heat up and things were starting to get a bit more aggressive and get a bit more traction in the news and whatnot. But these words are apparently not blocked on the Europe or US servers, but they are in English. They are, not in Mandarin Chinese. And there are also a bunch of other words in Mandarin Chinese, which included words like Hong Kong strike and strike Hong Kong and that sort of stuff. So they are blocking all of this sort of sentiment, which is against China, with their profanity filter, even though it's not technically profanity. So, a more drastic way to put it would be that they're abusing the profanity filter, but it's their system, so they can realistically do what they want. And this whole situation isn't specifically to do with Hearthstone, but it's more evidence of their slavish obedience to China.
Exactly, yeah.
But anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. It's just kind of an update on the unfolding situation regarding Blizzard and China and Hong Kong. So, what do you think? Is this American corruption bending to the will of the Chinese, or is it just a case of corporate business and it's just how they do things and it's not really censorship or whatnot? Make sure you let us know down in the comments below. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button and the bell button. I've been Henry, he's been Gaz. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.